Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we help multicultural incoming freshman women and men manage their entire college experience throughout post-graduation to successfully transition into entrepreneurship and corporate workspaces as new hires.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I finally figured it out. I'm back to me. So when you think you have nothing, back to me. I go back to me. Yeah, I'm back to me.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Yoli Tamu. We want to encourage you to believe in yourself and your unique ability to be excellent. In this week's episode, we are joined by Dr. Darin Earley, education consultant and former director of the LMU Family of Schools at Loyola Marymount University. Dr. Earley shares how he partners with parents to help guarantee that African-American college scholars get accepted into the college of their choice, while also preparing them to successfully graduate. Find out why a healthy understanding of your cultural, personal, and spiritual identity will ensure your success and set you up for excellence. Enjoy. I'm so excited to have with us one of my mentors who has been in my life for a long time. I mean, I think one of the inspirations for me also pursuing and helping young people. He's an educational consultant now, and he's the former director of Loyola Marymount University. Dr. Darin Earley, how's it going?
I'm good, Yoli. I'm good. And it's funny because it has been a while. It has been a while since we met. I don't even remember when, but I kind of remember how. And the wild part is you mentioned me being your mentor, but I've been mentored by you in a lot of spaces.
Oh,
Just for clarity, is former director of the LMU Family of Schools.
Family of Schools. Got it. Okay. Fantastic. Wow. Well, that's nice of you to say. Thank you that we contribute and help each other. I appreciate that.
No doubt.
So now you are now an educational consultant. So tell me about that pivot and what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, well, consulting is a weird game because I always wonder, what does that mean? How do people get paid for consulting, right? But I've always just been in the space of three places: training teachers, working on student leadership pieces, and then helping leaders become better, right? So even when I started in the classroom, that's always been my aim. And so at a point, like let's say maybe because I was with LAUSD, I started in 88, maybe probably about 95, 96, I started my first business in that space, and I was doing student programs and professional development. But it was just a one-off because I was still in the classroom. And each pivot in my life has been because I had a passion to impact education a bit more. And so with this last pivot, I was doing the work at Loyola Marymount University, felt as if I kind of got stagnated because there were a lot of cuts when my team was full, and full, I mean 3 folks. We were doing some amazing work with local schools, with K-12 public, charter, and Catholic schools. We were doing amazing work. But when my team got cut and I was not allowed to build that team back up with new bodies, I was like, okay, I started to really look at the work I was doing, and I couldn't do the work that I was passionate about. And I knew that if I stepped out on my own, I could it's almost like I could, instead of kind of doing this shotgun piece, I could hit some very specific pieces and kind of transform some things, hopefully, in the lives, not just of individual students, but of student groups, of specific teachers, and then work with targeted schools to see if I can help them get better. So that's kind of what the pivot was. It was the right time. It was the right few opportunities. And then the last thing I would say is that I've always enjoyed creating in the educational space, but when you're working a traditional job, you don't really create at the same pace. You don't create at the same clip, right? Because you're building somebody else's kingdom while you're kind of watching your kingdom from afar, hoping that some way you'll get to that place, right? This pivot has allowed me to kind of look hard at where the need is and then really use, what I would deem, my talents, gifts, wherever God has blessed me to have, really, really use those skills to do some things in a unique way that I couldn't think about when I'm hitting a traditional 9 to 5. So that's kind of what that was.
That makes perfect sense. And I mean, you've got 20 plus years in education, so you're coming at it from all sides, being an educator and then being on the administrative side. You've seen so many things, so you can really help a lot of people. Very cool. So now, with this extensive background in so many areas, can you tell us about a program you told me about, this African American student program that serves both parents and students that are matriculating into college?
Right. And so, a lot of the work that I do just kind of blends with each other. And there's a few organizations that I'm involved with that specifically speak to my heart's work, right? One is I have some colleagues who have put together this program doing research about kids in LA County, and it's called Strange Fruit No More. The second piece is one of my best friends growing up. His sister established an organization called Be Nerdy, which is a mentoring group for young ladies, right? And so I sit on the board of that. But then the third piece, and this is the one that's dear to my heart. Years ago, we were introduced to a program that was founded by a lady by the name of Ingrid Johnson. And the name of the program is the Council of African American Parents. And the Council of African American Parents, we have several programs, but the one program that really, captured our hearts as a family initially was called the Junior Senior Workshop. And it's a 16-week intensive where juniors and seniors kind of go through everything, the admissions process. They get to hear from admissions counselors. They take college tours, just workshops week after week after week. And then as an organization, we walk them through the application process. And then Ms. Johnson, who is the president of the organization, she has a lot of relationships with a lot of universities. So she does direct advocacy for our candidates, right?
Mm.
I started off years ago. My son is 30. I started off when he was 16 as just a parent in the program. For the last, I would say, 10 years, I've been on the board. And for the last 3 years, I've served as the assistant president, assistant chairman, assistant, whatever you want to call it. I'm Ms. Ingrid's right hand, right? So I'm Ingrid's right hand in terms of supporting the development of our programs. But more specifically, I do a lot of facilitating with a team of the junior senior workshop. And so in research, you never say 100%, but we have a 99.9% college going rate. We have students that are coming to us from a variety of different spaces. We have kids that are coming with 4.2s when they get to us, and we're just helping them really navigate to get into the college of their choices. We have kids that are coming to us with 2.5s when they get to us. And what we do is that we support them and their parents, and I'll talk about the parent piece in 1 second. We support them in understanding the process and seeing what they need to do at that 2.5 to be able to make themselves still eligible and identify the schools that they can go to, because a lot of times they make getting in hard, but if we can find where you can get in, then we can help you get out. And on the other end of that, we know that that's where, your dream is on the back end of it. It's not on the front. It's like, oh, this is my dream school. No, it's not if you don't graduate. No, it's not if you don't get accepted. So our job is like, how do we get kids in? And then how do we get them out? And so that's been the program. The program it's been a blessing to our family. Our 5 kids have matriculated through the program. It's been a blessing to me in a unique way because my last 3 children, I've been able to work with the program at a level where I'm facilitating workshops that they're in. And, as a parent, you always, your harshest critics are the ones that you raise, right? And so when we come home from those programs and they're like, Dad, that was pretty good. That's pretty encouraging. So Council of African American Parents, the program is 33 years old. And like I said, we haven't been around for 33 years, but that's the program where a lot of my skill, time, passion, and just energy goes to support those students and those families. And the part I told you about the families, we also, it's a volunteer organization. And so what we're doing also, we regularly have parent workshops because college changes so rapidly. And it doesn't matter college requirements and just the expectations. And it doesn't often matter whether or not a parent is college educated or that child going to college will be the first generation. They still need new information. So our job is, how do we equip them with new information? Well, with the information that changes, not new information. But how do we equip them with the information that changes? And how do we prepare them to support, navigate, and advocate for their children? But the last part, and I say children, and I said students, but really we don't use either one of those terms. We actually use scholars. That's our term because you understand the importance of what you call somebody is how they see themselves, right? And so we're talking to students and scholars. So when we're working with our young scholars and their families, that's part of the conversation. But the last thing I would say with moms and dads and aunties and uncles and grandparents, a lot of times it's not about navigating the college going process. Sometimes it's about navigating raising your children. Okay, there you go. So we have folks who literally, sometimes they're struggling in spaces with their children. And so we're also helping them with strategies, parenting strategies to kind of support them in ways that allow their households to run a little bit more efficiently. So we are truly that village. And that's why I love the Council of African American Parents. And that's why I continue to do that work in addition to the work that I'm doing in schools. They just marry each other very well.
My goodness, that's powerful. What stood out for me was when you said that it's not just about the first generation parent, because whether parents have gone to college or not, they need the information. And that's so good you say that because some parents are, too shy sometimes to say, hey, I need a little more support.
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing. Or they want to give the facade as if they do instead of just saying.
Until they spent all this money with their children going to these private schools or various different things. And then when it looks up for time for them to go to college, and specifically with our kids, with African American kids, they don't have the same access, or they don't have they're not getting accepted into the schools that they thought they wanted to go to. It's a lot of things in there that we have to work on to support our parents. But you're right, the learning curve is steep on both sides. Whether you're familiar with college or whether you're not, the learning curve is steep, and we try to flatten it out for folks.
So powerful. Now, how would they find out about this? Are there school counselors, or how would they learn about your program?
It is the best kept secret, but the website is mycap.org. So mycaap.org. And I'll double check that before we get off this. But that because we just had a website change, but it's mycap.org. You can find out about all of our programs.
So it's a word of mouth situation, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. And for 33 years, the way the organization started is because Ingrid Johnson had her scholars in a program. I mean, going to school in Diamond Bar, and they weren't getting service. They were being marginalized. They were not, things were not working well for them in the schools. And she was like, this is not happening. And she began to advocate for her children, which developed into her and a group of parents advocating for her children and other children, which 33 years later is the Council of African American Parents. And, we have, and I like to brag a little bit, when my son went through the program, he had a group of young people that they were very close to. But one of our scholars is Rachel Scott, who is an ABC correspondent, right? And she's White House correspondent, all these kind of things. But the reason why I bring Rachel up is that Rachel, her platform, for what she does professionally is huge. But CAP is the kind of organization, when we call her, she shows up. It's not like we're calling her administrative assistant. Not like she's like, hey, this is my family. And so we truly are a family. I always say this, CAP is like the mob. Once you're in, you're in. And so, but really it's like a family. And that would be a better analogy is that, we wrestle, we struggle, but we're going to support and be there for each other. And that's kind of who we are as an organization.
That's fantastic. And then I also like what you said about you make sure they get out. So you're addressing retention and all of that. So what do you do? I'm thinking about with the success of this program, are there some tips that you can offer our listeners? Because, we're serving that incoming college freshman as well as that graduate heading out into the workforce. And both of them deal with major anxiety and, just trying to sustain and transition is a big thing. So is there something you could offer our parents and students that are listening on how to get through college?
So three things, and I know you're going to appreciate the first one, but there's three areas that we really focus on. I'm gonna back into it, so you'll appreciate the third one. I'm gonna back it. So the first piece in terms of getting in, it's really about asking the right questions and not being afraid to look as if you don't know. And that's of college counselors, that's of people who have gone to college, that's people who are in college. Just ask the questions. That's really huge, right? And so as we get to that space, that's the step in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is that two of the workshops that we offer, one is how to choose a college, and the other is how to negotiate and navigate your life during the first year, right? Because one, in terms of choosing a college, too often we think the colleges are doing us a favor by accepting us. College is a business, and we need to be business people, and so the deal is just this, is that we need to understand that our children are the commodities. If you don't have students or you don't have scholars, you don't have a college because you don't have anybody to pay tuition, right? And so it's really important that families understand that as you're talking to these schools, as you're interviewing and applying to these schools, they should be interviewing and applying to your life. And so the mindset should be like, listen, you may want me, I'm not sure. I may think I want you, but let me find out what you really have to offer, right? And when we begin to investigate schools like schools investigate us,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll make a choice and you'll choose a school that fits. And it's not about the name of the school. It's not about the reputation of the school. College is about fit. And you may say, I want to go to Harvard or Howard or USC or Hampton or whatever the case is. But if there is no fit there, you're going to get there and it's not going to work for you. And so it's really important that we emphasize for them that, you got to find a school that fits. Don't worry about what school so-and-so went to. Don't worry about what school you like the sports program. Don't worry about what school all your friends are talking about. Find a school that fits for you. It may be a small liberal arts college like Smith College, or it may be a large, state school like UCLA. or it may be a boutique school like, Hampton Howard, something like that. But whatever the case is, you need to find that school that fits you. That's the first thing.
Mhm.
And I mentioned Hampton and Howard last, only because in that conversation I saved the best for last. I'm kidding. Not really. The other thing that I wanted to say is just this. The third thing that I said that you would appreciate is that how are you going to make sure your child does well in college? You need to make sure that your child is clear on their identity. They need to be clear on their spiritual self and their spiritual identity. They need to be clear on their cultural identity, and they need to be clear on their personal identity. Right. And so we spend a lot of time, working with them, emphasizing the fact, we unashamedly point kids toward the Lord. But that's part of our conversation. We're not a Christian organization by definition, but we are an organization that lets folks know that, that without Yeshua, it ain't happening. And so it's really important for us, for you to be thinking in terms of your spiritual self, right? But we have children that come to us who are Muslim. We have children that come to us, who don't have a faith. That has nothing to do with it, but we are going to be upfront and honest and authentic about who we are from where we sit in our faith. That's the first thing. So spiritual identity, kids got to be clear on that. Second thing they got to be clear on is their cultural identity. I developed a framework a few years ago, and the knowledge matters, right? And so when you have knowledge of cultural history, it allows you to sit in a space where you can develop your identity in a way that you're clear and you're not asking questions, and you're aware of other folks like you who have done some stuff. And what that does, that creates in you a level of self-esteem. And that self-esteem is wild, because when somebody says you can't or you shouldn't or you won't, you have a authentic, because of your knowledge of cultural history, you have an authentic counter narrative that you can offer there to say, hey, you're getting it wrong. This is what the fact. And that counter narrative helps you have a level of confidence. You're sitting there like, you can't tell me this because I know, and these are the examples that I have in that space, right? And confidence for an athlete, for an entertainer like you are, for anybody, confidence is 90% of the game. And once you have confidence, you can be successful in school, in business, and whatever you do. And so that confidence also allows you to think critically about the space you're in, and then you begin to see success as culturally compatible. You begin to see success as, that's not just something that white folks do. That's not just something that tall folks do, that Asian folks do, whatever. You begin to look in the mirror and say, you know what? This is culturally compatible. My success aligns with who I am as a person, and I can pursue it in a very unique and passionate way, right? So that's kind of that piece in terms of the identity. So it's that cultural identity, it's that spiritual identity, and there's that personal identity. What do you do well? You contribute. Get involved in organizations in high school so you can really learn your skill set. So you can say, when I walk into a room and they say, why should we accept you into this college? Why should we give you the scholarship? Why should we hire you? You can look them in the face, because I could do so and so and so and so. One of our scholars, she's a performing artist.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you guys are called, right? I mean, that's what you are, right? But anyway, yeah. So Olivia's a thespian, and I guess she's in training or something to that effect, because she's going to be Tiana at Disneyland, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I say all that to say this is that there is a level of confidence that is needed for that. Now, mind you, her parents have done an amazing job. We would like to say also, through the Council of African American Parents and the interaction that she's developed with, and I want to take a step back, the interaction that she's had with other peers has also given her, a different angle on that confidence and that ability to say, I can get after it. And this is the funny part about CAP. In 2023, many middle-class Black folks live in spaces where their kids go to schools with kids that don't look like them. So what's happening is just this, is that we say we're trying to give them a quote unquote better opportunity, but really what we're doing is that we're putting them in an environment where they often can feel marginalized and ostracized, right? Put your kids, if you don't live in a community where they can interact and see folks that look and are culturally and ethnically connected to them, find those spaces, parents. That's critical. Now, they can thrive in any space. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but when you feel like you are the only one of you in a space, there is some stereotype threat that you experience. There is sometimes that I'm not really sure, because the context doesn't necessarily value me and I got to fight through everything. There are some things as it relates to that. And we want to, as much as possible, help our young people to level that playing field so that they can get out and be their best selves to who God called them to be. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much and that makes sense, but that's kind of what we're about.
That is fantastic. I mean, especially now in the wake of the Supreme Court decision and taking affirmative action out, as if we really wanted it in the first place. But there is definitely a need because, like you said, we're just not treated appropriately or given the same opportunities. But I love your philosophy of, you don't need those handouts, get in there with your confidence and make it happen. That's what I hear you.
Right. And we're not saying that anti-blackness is not a real thing.
Right.
We're not saying that, that folks have not been discriminated against. But a dear friend of mine and an amazing scholar, Dr. Tyrone Howard, he said when he was speaking to our CAP students years ago, in the midst of all the things that we were seeing in terms of what was happening with Black folks and the whole Black Lives Matter movement, not the organization, but the movement, the conversation that he opened up one of his presentations to our students with is that you need to remember that Black excellence matters. And I would say that Black excellence has always mattered. And as we allow our children to see themselves as being excellent, and then also to make sure that they are pursuing excellence, what that does is that Ron DeSantis and anybody else who makes any kind of decision that seems like it is anti, who we are as a people and our progress, you can't stop the train once it's out of the station. One of my heroes, Fred Hampton, he said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. And the work that needs to be done and that's being done, that's the revolution. So you may be able to stop one here, one there, but if our mindset is one of excellence, we ain't gonna keep on moving.
And is that why you focus on the African American student? Because you want to enforce that excellence in that sector of students?
And it's funny, and I have to be very honest. When I started teaching, I only wanted to work with Black kids until I worked with Latino kids. And now I say I only want to work with Black and brown kids.
Wow.
Until I work with Black and brown kids. Until I work with some Asian kids and then some white kids. And see, I love working with kids because I think all of them have a need.
Yes.
But the corner that I stand on, the corner that I think I have the responsibility for brightening is the corner for African American children. And so I'm unashamedly going to do that work, and I'm not going to do that work and ignore any other child that has a need, any other child that's in my space. I'm going to look at them and I'm going to love them and push them. But as I think in terms of programs, energy, resources, things like that, my primary focus is Black children. And this is the wild part, though. We have children who come to our Council of African American Parents. They're not Black kids. Then this last year, we have a math program. We had several Latino students that were involved. In our junior senior workshop, we had some Latino students that had a Latino young lady, a Latina, and she was involved. But this is the catch. As the focus of our conversation is still going to be geared to what it's geared for. Now, if you want to ride along, we're not going to make you feel uncomfortable. You're just going to learn some stuff that maybe you didn't know and develop some relationships that maybe you didn't have, or maybe you did have. But that's the corner that I think God has called me to stand on. And so I'm going to stand there unashamedly.
I love it. I love it. This is so good. Man, I was just thinking also when you were talking about that fit, when it comes to interviewing colleges. So you're training them to identify their spirituality. You're training them to identify their culture. Or is there a vetting process of sorts to even get into your program?
Well, okay, there is a vetting process. But because it's word of mouth, oftentimes the vetting is done twofold. In terms of the vetting, that's the first vetting part. Folks come to the orientation, they kind of see what we're about, and then they kind of see the intensity of the program because we're not playing. I only talked about the junior senior workshop, but we actually have another program called Personal Academic Learning Systems. Junior senior workshop is for 11th and 12th graders. PALS, or Personal Academic Learning System, is for 4th to 10th grade. Then we have a reading circle that's for our babies that's from kindergarten to 3rd grade. And then we also have a summer program, used to just be for young men, but now it's for young men and young women. It's called Legacy Roundtable, and that's a math enrichment program. And all of those programs you can find out about on our website. But okay, so that's the vetting process. First, you come to our orientation to see what we're about. Secondly, you probably found out word of mouth. So they probably told you the pros and the cons of being part of our program, right? But then at the beginning, it is about our initial conversations with parents. Our expectations are excellence. And so we're going to push you. So if you're going to be uncomfortable with being pushed and having your child pushed, this is not the organization for you. Now, we're going to love and respect and do all that thing, but we're going to challenge them and push them. And hopefully what happens and what we've seen happen, we got very few folks that say, I don't want the best for my kids. We got folks that may not know how to always give it to them in specific areas, but every parent wants to see their child thrive. And those who come to programs like this, and the program will cost much less than most college-going programs, but then we have students who get scholarships there all the time, where family may not be able to afford, and we find a way. We don't turn kids away because they can't afford it, but we also only take, in our junior senior program, we cap out at about 30 every year. So we're only working with 30 scholars in that program every year. But all of our other programs, those are very large programs. But our junior senior workshop is a small kind of exclusive kind of piece because we want to be able to give them the attention and the time they need to move forward.
Absolutely. That focus. This has been great. Wow. Well, this is powerful. I mean, I always like to wrap up with final words of encouragement. And I think you've been saying it, the power of excellence. Is there something you want to add as the final word?
I would say this across the board that, parents, students, folks like you who are in the schools and organization doing work, folks like me who kind of, do consulting in different spaces. We often think about what you do being the most important. But I'm gonna change that a little bit. I'm gonna say what you do and what you fail to do matters. Because what you do has a direct impact. But what you don't do leaves a void. And the void is always filled with something. And sometimes that void is what it's filled with, it is far worse than nothing. Point being is just this. We need to make sure that we are doing things that make a difference in the lives of those children that we expect to serve. And just being passive is not enough. So if you see a need and you fail to meet it, shame on you. If I see a child that I can direct and point in the right direction, and because of whatever reason, I ignore that opportunity, shame on me. What you do and what you don't do matters. And let's do the right thing. Isn't that what Ozzie Davis said it?
Oh, Ozzie Davis, he sure did.
He said, Mookie, always do the right thing. That wasn't Mookie. He said, what he said? Well, I forgot what his name in that movie, but he said, hey, always do the right thing.
That was right.
Oh my, yeah, that was my guy. That was my guy. So, okay, that's it, Yoli. Thank you for the time.
It's been a pleasure. Man, you did so well. I appreciate you. I'm so glad we reconnected. I'm looking forward to talking more. And give us the website one more time. It's mycap.
It is it's mycap.org.
Okay, mycaap.org. Cool. So now if they wanted to reach you by email, is that possible? Or maybe go on LinkedIn? Where would you like to send them?
No, definitely. I'm on LinkedIn, Darin Earley, DARINEARLEY. But email is simple. It's the name of my company. It's 5M Legacy. So 5M is in Matthew, Legacy 65 @gmail.com.
Okay, so you don't spell out 5. It's just the number 5.
It's just the number 5.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Darin.
Appreciate you.
All right, so we'll be talking soon. You take it easy.
All right,
now.
excellent.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us. Develop your confidence, clarify your identity, and be a part of the revolution. For more information about other episodes, remember to subscribe to the Back to Me podcast, College and Beyond. I'm your host, Yoli Tamu. Leave a review at the end of this podcast. And if you would like to learn more about other special events, join the Back to Me podcast Facebook group or simply text Back to Me to 833-206-4565. Until next time, be well.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me.